All right, welcome to another video. This is going to be my series where I prepare for my new job starting 5/25 and do whatever I can in the month I have before I start to make sure I am as valuable as I can be from day one. So as I mentioned before, in my opinion, this means network automation, making sure I'm as up to date and learned in that as possible. One thing I have mentioned before is that I have been working on a script that I think would be just completely groundbreaking and game-changing if I could get to work. Unfortunately, I tried to dig it up and figure out where I had stored it, but I failed to do that. I couldn't find where it was. I had been keeping a public blog that if anyone wants to go to, just check it out here. And it, I believe, does have that script on there. I just think I might not have pushed it live yet, so it's going to be in my posts that I haven't pushed public yet. I know there's a way to look those up. Unfortunately, I don't see how I can do that, but the moment I do, I think I can have that. Thing that I need. So let's see here. So I just need to figure out how I can edit my current posts, or how I can get to the part of this where I can see the posts I made. So let me try this edit key here. Ah, perfect. So this is exactly what well, no, it's not, because this is just I can't see all my draft posts. Aha, perfect. This is what I needed. So I should have the, this is kind of a joke because I bought my domain space, so no longer homeless on the internet is what it's about. It's meant to be kind of a clickbaity joke thing. Let's see here. Oh yeah, and here's my, I didn't make that public yet, but yeah, I just think if the Ice King would have won, or the Night King would have won, it would have been a much better ending to season 8. But I'm trying to find that script I was working on, because if I can get that to work, it would be really awesome. But unfortunately, I think I've lost it. But it won't be too hard for me to get that, to just make it up from scratch again. And the version I had didn't work anyway. So once I put more time into getting that to work, that would be good anyway. So now, hopefully this is done downloading. It's been a while since I've come back to it. So yep, looks like it's done downloading. So now we can import it in, and hopefully there are no more any missing files. Oops. This probably takes a little bit of time to import. It's a 2.5 gigabyte file. So that's kind of big. I'm actually a little bit surprised I have that much space on my laptop. My laptop does not have a ton of space. I'm going to plug in my microphone now. Sorry for that. Hopefully the audio is much better now. And I've got my mic on, and there you go. So hopefully this is a night and day difference. This is video 5, so hopefully you now have a much better time hearing me. Sorry for that though. All right, so let's give this some time to work and maybe just do some more reading while it's working. So I think we already read this part. Let's just read it again. Let's start by using the Python virtual environment, which allows us to manage separate package installations for different projects. This is accomplished by creating a virtual isolated Python installation and installing packages into that virtual installation. And we would not need to worry about breaking the packages installed globally or from other virtual environments. We will start by using the Python pip tool, then create a virtual environment. So we'll come back to this once our lab environment is good to go. As you can see from the output, we use the venv package from the Python 3 standard library, not included in Python 2, unfortunately. And so in your unicorn environment, yeah, you're going to boot up Python 3. You're going to make a virtual environment, but in the real world, you'll be lucky to have Python 2.4. So unfortunately, you won't have this capability. As you can see from the output, we use the venv package from the Python 3 standard library, create the directory containing our environment, then activate it. While the virtual environment is activated, you will see the venv label in front of your hostname, indicating that you are in the virtual environment. When finished, you can use the deactivate command to exit the virtual environment. If interested, you can learn more about Python virtual environments here. Python 2's usage and installation of virtual environment is slightly different. You can find a number of tutorials online for Python 2 virtual environments. So yep, I mean, you can use virtual environments with Python 2, no problem, but it just takes a little bit extra because it's not included in the standard library, so you've got to download it. And if you're in a unicorn environment, yep, great, you can do whatever you need to do. But if you're in the real world, unfortunately, that might be a deal breaker, but of course you can just install everything into your global space. So don't let not being able to use a virtual environment prevent you from achieving your goals. That's all I need to say. That's all I have to say about that. pexpect installation. pexpect installation process is pretty straightforward. Pip install pexpect. If you are, and one thing to note too, this venv, so they have their virtual environment activated. And it's going to be installed only if that's activated. If you exit out of that virtual environment or you go into a different one that's not named venv, you will not be able to pull in pexpect because it's not a part of the standard library for Python. If you are installing Python packages in the global environment, you would need to use root privilege, such as sudo pip install pexpect. Yeah, that's another nice thing too. You actually, it's easier for you to install packages if you are using a virtual environment because you don't require administrative privileges. Do a quick test to make sure the package is usable. Make sure we start the Python interactive shell from the virtual environment. Python import pexpect, dir pexpect. So yeah, you can do dir on specific modules and you can see the things you get with each of those modules. So this is something I went in before, I'll go over again. So I can do dir and I can get all of the things in this namespace. Now I can import a new namespace. You can see that namespace is a part of this namespace, but I can do a dir on that namespace and see all the things that I get in that namespace. So another way you can see what you get is help, but this is just what the programmer wrote to help you use it. So if you want to see what's actually there and not just rely on that programmer being good enough to have included everything, this dir will tell you everything that is actually there and not just what the programmer tells you is there. And then of course you can just find the file and look at the source code yourself, and then you know exactly what is there. All right. Do a quick test to make sure the package is usable. Make sure we start the Python interactive shell from the virtual environments. Yep, so we'll come back to that. Oh, well, let's check in on this actually. Aha, so it looks like it is downloading. We're at 1.8, we gotta go to 2.5. Luckily, it's not downloading it from the internet, so it looks like it's going pretty fast. We're already at 71. So 72, so yeah, things are moving pretty fast. So let's just keep reading. And then let's go back to those examples. So p-expect overview. For our first lab, we will construct a simple network with 2 iOS devices connected back to back. The devices will each have a loopback address in the 192.16.0.x/24 range, and the management IP will be in the 172.16.1.x/24 range. The viral topology file is included in the accompanying downloadable files as well as on the GitHub repository. For the book, you can import the topology to your own viral software. If you do not have viral, you can also use the necessary information by opening the topology file with a text editor. The file is simply an XML file with each node's information under the node element. So with the devices ready, let's take a look at how you would interact with the router if you were to telnet into the device. So this is, I think, not worth a strike, but this to me is very upsetting that the first lesson is telnet, because again, the name of the book is Mastering Python Networking. If we're gonna learn it for the first time, yes, learning how to use telnet is a good first introduction into Python network automation because it's really easy. But what you're going to be doing in the real world, if you don't want your boss or your coworkers to laugh at you, you're going to be using SSH. If you go to your boss and you say, oh, look at this wonderful idea we can do. We can enable telnet on our router. You're going to get laughed out of the room. So like, yeah, telnet is a great way to learn Python network automation for the first time. But if we're mastering it, SSH is the only thing you need to be talking about ever if we're talking about mastery of network automation. And even that, you know, if there's netconf available, you're going to be taken a lot more seriously if you're using something like that. You know, as you mentioned, APIs, if you're taking advantage of APIs instead of the CLI, that's going to be even more advantageous to you. So starting a mastering network automation book with a lesson on telnet, I don't think it's worth the second strike, but it's definitely, that first strike is starting to really get overworked to the point where I think a second strike might be kind of in order soon. It looks like I haven't even made it a fourth of the way through this book, and I've spent already multiple hours on it. So I know that the other book I have, DevOps for Network Engineering, I think it's called. You know, I've already mentioned that book in this one, and I've really only skimmed through it. So I think that's going to be a much more valuable book to go into in depth than this one if we get to that third strike. But I think we're still at the first strike with this one. I'm about to maybe assign it a second strike because of how upset I am with the approach they're taking to this book. They're really taking a beginner's first approach, even though the title is Mastering, which is the reason it was interesting to me, because I wanted to master network automation, not learning for the first time, especially not using Telnet. All right, ready to install. Oh, can I not hit next? I can, sweet. Yes, I would like to do that. So template will be available in the guest category. Password is GNS3. Username is GNS3. Perfect. So hopefully this one's a lot better. And hopefully I can get public access, and we'll go back and we'll do those exercises. So this is an actual VM. This was just a Docker container. The difference being Docker container is just a stripped down bare essentials, whereas the whole VM, I think sometimes can be a bit more stable. Yeah, and look, we've got a whole like we'll get the whole graphical user interface too. Like this is an actual Ubuntu Linux box. Like see that? Like this is the whole thing. It's not just a stripped down version, which of course the stripped down version is very valuable too, but we're going to be using this as our development environment hooked up to the public internet. So we don't want to be missing out on any features that we would be if we were using a stripped down version. All right, so let's open up a terminal somehow. I'm not sure how. Control T. Nope. Alt T. I don't know how to open up a terminal. Terminal. Aha, here we go. All right, so maybe just fresh out of the box, it's good to go. I mean, if it's got, oh yes, it is. Yeah, because we've got DHCP on it. It's hooked up to my local network through that cloud object. So we're good to go. Like there's no issue. Yeah, I'm really glad I set this up. So let's continue to take full advantage of this. And let's go back and do those exercises in the book. So the first exercise, we're just going to be learning that sudo apt command, which I don't know why that would be the first exercise to learn if it was a mastering. I'm learning for the first time. I get it, but not for mastering it. This book really needs to be renamed to Learning Network Automation for the First Time. Okay, so now we got, all we're doing is we're updating our apt repository. So next step is going to be installing Python 3 pip, which I bet we probably already have, but we'll just see what it says. It'd be nice if I could get this to boot up to the terminal. So I wonder if there's options I can set to have it boot up to the terminal instead of the GUI. Yeah, let's install now. Why not? Okay. So is this done? I'm not sure what's going on here. Yep, it's done. Oh, it needs admin mode to do those updates. There we go. Okay, so it is done. Unfortunately, we got that same problem where it's running off the end of the screen. This is why I kind of want it. Let's do a Google search on this. Set up Ubuntu to boot up to. So press Control Alt F1. That did not work. Yeah, I wanted to force it to go into the terminal by default. Sudo nano etc default grub. Oops, and I've got a, I don't think the clipboard's not shared. Okay, so we're going to restart this VM, and hopefully it will take us up to where we've got nothing but that terminal screen, because if we want to go back into the GUI mode, we can just always do a start X and get there. But as you could see, finding that terminal screen, pulling it up, and even having it listed on the whole screen, that was a giant pain in the A. And we're going to be spending most of our time there anyway. All right, so let's keep moving on this. Yeah, so we were learning about Python virtual environments. Unable to mount on unknown block. That looks like a problem there. I wonder if it's a problem that can be recovered from. It looks like it cannot. So it looks like I bricked the server. What if I yeah, I completely bricked the whole server by doing that. Maybe if I try to stop it and then restart it here. Okay, so yeah, unfortunately that setting destroyed the server. So hopefully there's a way to undo it. If there's not, I can just, the great thing about VM is I can just delete this server, put it in a second time, then I'll be good to go. But let's see if I can choose another one of these options. And maybe start it in recovery mode. Nope, I can't even start it in recovery mode. Okay, well, we're just gonna have to deal with that annoying GUI then. So I will delete this, and then I will put this back here, and we're just gonna have to learn to be annoyed and uncomfortable, but we have lots of experience and practice with that, so it won't be that hard. Okay. Okay, so I just want to finish up this exercise. I don't want to spend too much time here just getting myself ready for it. Yep, so we're not running into that same error. Perfect, we got that GUI coming up. Everything works really nice. If you just accept the inconvenience of the GUI. Yep, slow to boot up, but hopefully it won't take that long. Unfortunately, I do have to cut this video short at about 2:20. I want to be somewhere at 2:30, but that place I want to be is virtual, of course, with the COVID-19 stuff happening. So it won't take me long to go over there, but I still need to make sure to end the video on time. And unfortunately, it looks like this VNC, tight VNC viewer is not, oh, perfect, okay, yes, okay, sweet. There we go, now I can look at my applications. So let me open up the terminal. And I'm interested in this Biobo terminal. Looks like one of those Japanese screens. So it's the lightweight, powerful text window manager Biobo. Looks interesting. Okay, yep, and with the zoom out button, you can get the whole dang thing. So let's do this exercise. Sudo apt update. We're doing sudo. So sudo is super do. It requires admin permissions, which we do have. So again, this exercise assumes you have a unicorn environment, which you'll be very, very lucky to have. So that's a big reason this book has got a strike. It's really kind of spending too much time on things that you might not necessarily have. But the ability to just use basic Python to manipulate text, to pull back something from a device, that sort of thing, you can use that pretty much no matter what resources you have. So that's why I'm kind of disappointed that they're not spending so much time on that. I'm almost 1/4 of the way done with this book, and we haven't even gotten to that yet. All right, so I did the update. So let's do sudo apt install Python 3 pip. So let's do a yes. %2 progress. Yeah, it's going super slow. I'm kind of wish it would go faster. I think it's pulling, yeah, it's pulling things down from online. And you can see my connection is pretty crappy right now. Well, it's probably the peak Netflix hour. Let's do a speed test. Oh, actually my internet's great right now. So I don't know why it's taking so long. Maybe it's not taking so long. Maybe it's taking super quick. Just don't know how long it would take if I had worse internet. All right, well, we're 50% of the way done. Oh, let's unbookmark this so it doesn't get confused. There we go. So, okay, well, we're almost done now. Really all we need to do is, oh, that's interesting, that which command. Never seen that before. Wish we could actually do it, but this installation of Python 3 pip is taking a long time. even though I'm surprised I didn't already have it. But it looks like it sure enough is setting it up for the first time. So obviously I did not have it. Okay, so now we're good to go. So Python, what opens by default? I'm just curious. Okay, so I don't have Python set to do that. It looks like I'm one version behind what they're using here, but I can always update that. Let's do the next command showing the example. So Python 3-m vnv. Now here you can name it whatever you want, but typically it's just named vnv. But of course, if you're going to have multiple virtual environments in the same folder, I mean, that's usually why it's called VNV. Typically, if you have more than one project, you're going to have each project in its separate folder. So in each folder, you're going to have a virtual environment. So there's typically no reason for you to have different names for virtual environments because they're going to belong to different folders. So you only need unique names if they're in the same folder. The virtual environment was not created successfully because ensure pip is not available. So, okay, let's do this command then. So again, this is, oops, and I need a sudo. So this is the kind of the perfect example of a unicorn. When you press Control A, and do you want it to operate in screen mode, Emacs mode? I want it to operate in Emacs mode. Perfect. Okay. So sudo. Yep, and we do want that. So hopefully this does not take as long, but this is kind of the perfect example of the book, the mentality in this book, and that's the unicorn environment mentality. They can't even imagine an environment where you wouldn't have complete power and control over your circumstances. But, as I continually mention, that is the environment you will most likely be in. And we can see here's a good example of what would happen. What if I couldn't do a sudo? I didn't have admin over this box. What if I only had Python 2 available? You could see they're really assuming kind of a lot out of somebody. I find a big part of what network automation is people-based. You have to work with people, and you have to get things from people, access, data. There's things that are not just about technical ability. It's also getting the things you need, kind of having a little bit of social ability, being able to leverage your management. That's really important too. You can kind of plead the case to management, and you can communicate effectively and professionally. That's going to take you farther than being the absolute, triple CCIE, a single CCIE who's really an effective communicator is going to be much more valuable than a triple CCIE who anytime there's a problem just shuts down and just kind of doesn't pursue it any further. All right, so we finally finished that. We've got a good virtual environment we can work with, or a lab environment. Follow along with the rest of it. Let's do the other exercise that they had. So it's Python import pexpect, dir pexpect. So the first part of this exercise, though, is installing it. So we've got to reactivate our virtual environment. And one thing you'll notice is this is a path. So if I deactivate, I do an ls, Oh, and the coloring is so bad. But why is the coloring always bad by default? I don't understand. Like for me, like a lot of the terminals I use by default have like the worst coloring you could imagine making the terminal. I don't get it. But in this light purple against a kind of different shade of purple background that you can barely see because of that effect, you can see VNV. So yeah, I can go into VNV, and now in here in more kind of off purple against a similar color of purple, you can see bin. And now in here we've got activate. So I'll do an ls dash al, and we can see activate is a file, not a directory. So this is what we are running. So source VNV bin activate. All right, so now let's do a pip install on pexpect. And notice we don't need to do sudo this time because we're doing it within our virtual environment. And we're nice and quick. So do a quick test to make sure the package is usable. Make sure we start the Python interactive shell from the virtual environment. And in our case, we're going to need to do, oh, we can just use Python from the virtual environment. I think outside of the virtual environment. Yeah, outside of the virtual environment, we can't do it that way. So virtual environment just makes everything easier. I definitely recommend always using a virtual environment. Unless, of course, you're not in a unicorn environment and you've got to make things work. Or you legitimately want something to be installed globally. All right, so Python. And now we're going to do import expect dir. Oops, and it's going to be pexpect. There we go. So let's import pprint. Do a pprint dot pprint pexpect so we can actually see what's in there. Oh, we've got to do a dir on it. Okay, so here's everything that's a part of pexpect. So pexpect overview. In our first lab, we will construct a simple network with two iOS V devices connected back to back. The devices will each have a loopback address in the 192.16.0.x/24 range, and a management IP will be in the, and the management IP will be in the 172.16.1.x-24 range, which is kind of odd. The viral topology file is included in the accompanying downloadable files, as well as on the GitHub repository. For the book, you can import the topology to your own viral software. If you do not have viral, you can also use the necessary information by opening the topology file with a text editor. The file is simply an XML file with each node's information under the node element. Okay, so let's get those devices ready to go in GNS3. And I'm not sure which one we'll use. Let's use the 1725s. I think the 7200 images are a little bit bigger. And this looks like it's going to be a pretty simple topology. So there's no reason to kind of make things overblown when they don't have to be, just waste resources, have everything go slower. There's really no reason to do that. So Cisco devices, if you've seen my other channel where I'm working on VMX, pretty big pain in the A, but Cisco's are kind of the backbone of GNS3. It's what they're built upon. So everything goes a lot smoother and quicker if you're using a Cisco with GNS3. And you need far less resources too. Like this topology here could easily be done on just any laptop. It doesn't require that special Dell PowerEdge server that I've got. But for my VMX stuff, no way you'll be able to do that on just a laptop, even a nice one with 16 gigs. All right, so everything seems okay. We're gonna need, okay, so we've got a management network, we've got static IP config. So let's change the host names, perhaps. Well, let's just look at what they've got in here. So this is GitHub. This is a great way to share code and collaborate with others. The most important thing you need to know about GitHub is that the code changes depending on which branch you're on. Typically, you're going to have multiple branches in a repo. So if you're looking at the wrong branch, you might not see the code you're expecting to see. But in a repo that's live like this, meant for everyone to see, hopefully everything is pushed into the master branch, because that's typically the branch you want to be public, is the master main branch. And then anything else, you're going to make those more private for your developers to work on. And then when it's ready for them to go public, they will merge it into your master branch. So, oh, this is just the math stuff, chapter 1 through 2, or 1 through 3. This is the, here's the viral topology. So looks like we've got pretty big file here, but we've got it for 2 hosts. Let's just see if this whole thing straight up pastes in. That would really make my life easy. It's an ideal scenario for sure. Oops, that's not an ideal scenario. Just randomly clicking over to a random page. Oh, and we've got to be in config T if we're configuring something, of course. So this is a lot of config. I'll just wait for it to, there we go. So config T. Perfect. But it looks like my router is a little bit different from theirs, and I don't have gig interfaces. Let me try standing up a 7200 image, and if it pastes in a lot smoother, I will move over to using that one. Here we go. So, oops. Looks like it's got the wrong, oh, there it is, okay. So yeah, so 7200s take a little bit longer to boot up. They're bigger images, so I figured I'd just go with the smaller one and take advantage of the extra time, but unfortunately, it looks like the image they're using is, requires a bigger kind of image. Oh, so it looks like we still had a bunch of issues. Yeah, I just don't have a GI01 interface. Let's do a show run. This might be kind of embarrassing for me. I haven't actually used Cisco's in a while. Yeah, I think I'm just going to stick to the smaller C3725 images. So I'm going to delete this, and then I'll just kind of put this in a notepad and then think about what is actually required and get rid of things that are not. So yep, all this I think will be required. Well, let's just take it step by step, and then anything that doesn't paste in, we'll think about whether or not that's actually needed, and we'll compare it to what's actually on there. So yep, we've got our host name in fine, so let's paste it up to here. Big T, and I'm going to need to end this real soon. So configuration from version 15.6 may not be correctly understood. Okay, I'm not sure what that is. Let's paste in this. Now let's paste in this. I'm surprised there's a VRF. That's kind of strange. That didn't go in, so let's kind of think about what this is. Yeah, it looks like it's just a special routing table for management. So I'm not sure why that's on there. I don't think we'll need it. I think it's just perhaps their default configuration or something like that. But I don't think it's going to be necessary. These kind of commands, login buffered, yep, enable, password, those are all essential. Yeah, I'm not sure what this is, Mimi. So I don't think we're going to worry about that. Here's some really essential commands. The domain name, you got to have that if you want to generate SSH keys. No IP domain lookup. By default, Cisco will try to translate any address you give it into its DNS, but it will try to contact a DNS server when it does that, and it will time out and waste a good 5 to 10 seconds of your time. So you can just turn that feature off. Kind of an interesting choice for them to disable CDP. I think it generally doesn't work in emulated environments anyway. Okay, so here's where things are going to need to change. If I do a run show int, or sorry, do show int description, you can see I've got fast Ethernet interfaces instead of gigabit Ethernet interfaces, which in a production environment, yeah, you want gigabit Ethernet interfaces, but this is not a production environment. Oh, and looks like they do that VRF configuration is going to be pretty essential. Yeah, and it looks like I don't even have the ability to configure a VRF. Like I could not. Yeah, I can't have VRF forwarding on the kind of Cisco image I'm using, unfortunately. So the way I set up management is going to be quite a bit different than the way they set up management, but I think we're just going to have to differ. And one of my main, if you watch my other video series, one of the running themes of it is concepts, not commands. So it's not important that I set it up exactly the way they set up. It's just understand that I understand the concept behind how they set it up. And I understand the concept of management in general so well that I can come up with a custom solution that works for me. That's far more important than being able to follow along exactly with whatever random solution somebody else came up with. At least in my opinion, it is. Of course, there is the flip side to that. You can get overconfident and think, oh, my way's better. Little did you know this is a security expert who's telling you to do it because you're going to have severe problems with network security if you don't do it that way, and you go your own way. So all of a sudden you're left open to exploitation because of it. But again, the running theme behind the spirit behind that theme is concepts, not commands, meaning you would know if there was an issue with the path you're going. You're not just picking a path because it's easier or because it's something you're used to doing. You're picking that path because you learn concepts, you don't learn commands, and the concept of what you want to implement makes more sense than the commands they want to implement that may not necessarily be based on concepts. It may just be on the fact of them knowing certain commands. Okay, so it's a Cisco, so we've got to do a write. So yeah, I think we're good with router 1. I think I've got time for router 2. As I said, I want to be somewhere at 2:30, but the place I want to be is virtual, so I think I've got some time. We're going to need to figure out what to do about that VRF, and it looks like I've only got one port on here, but let's see if we can just add another one. Oh, yeah, so I'm going to have to delete the link in order to do that. I can do that, it's no problem. Okay, so now I've got an extra port I can use to tap into my lab network. But let's see if we can get router 2 done. If I can, that would be a big victory, so that the next video I won't have to do that. Oh, and it's not going to be configured private like it is on Juniper. It's going to be configured terminal. There are options, just like there are in Juniper. You can do configure. Yeah. You can do. Oh, that's interesting. Configure confirm. What's that? Oh, okay. But generally in Cisco, especially in Cisco iOS instead of Cisco XR, Cisco XC, it's just going to be configure terminal. You really don't have any other options. Okay, so here's that VRF. I'm kind of surprised, or I'm kind of surprised this image doesn't have it. Surprised and a little bit upset because I'm really going to have to kind of put in some extra elbow grease to get this to work the way they expect it to, just out of the box. But I can certainly do that, and it's a good exercise for learning network engineering, I think. But unfortunately, if somebody, because it seems like that book is more towards beginners, so if setting up a VRF, I don't think is a beginner concept. The book's kind of all over the place. I don't know if they're meant for beginners. I don't know if they really are meant for mastering. It's just unclear what the intended scope of the audience is, even after I read the part of the book that explained what it was. Okay, I can be a little bit late to the thing, but hopefully I don't have to be. I'm very nearly done with this. yeah, if you've watched my Juniper video, I think you can already see just how much nicer things paste in Juniper, or sorry, in Cisco. I have not yet had a case where only half a line paste in. It either pastes in perfectly or it doesn't paste in because there's an actual issue with it, not because the act of actually pasting it in has failed for some reason. It's just the command itself is not able to paste in instead of the actual characters being sent to the CLI in some way didn't make it there. Okay, so yep, I'm calling it for now. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next video.